Hi, pipe smokers. My name is Paul Gilson, aka Paul the Pipe Guy. And today is 9/11/2023. The reason I'm doing this video is out of respect and honor for all those brave people and poor souls that lost their lives on 9/11 of 2001. So it's been 22 years, and I want to share my experiences with that day and some facts about that day. It was a beautiful, beautiful Tuesday. It was Tuesday, 9/11/2001, and I was a finance manager at a car dealership in the Rochester, New York area. So basically I'm only 360 miles, north of where the Twin Towers were. So it's pretty close. And I remember getting up that day, and my wife made me a nice breakfast. I went to work. I got to work at about 8:30 a.m. in the morning. And I received a call from my wife. It was an emergency call. And I hate those. And so I answered the call, and my wife was on the phone and said, "Hey, a jet airliner just hit one of the World Trade Center towers." And I was like, "What?" She's like, "Yeah, it's got to be terrorism." I mean, my wife knows things. She just knows things. And so I was in shock. So I want to run down through the timeline. And like I said, it was a beautiful Tuesday, September 11th of 2021, and it was a Tuesday. I remember the skies were blue as blue could be. Actually, today is very, very much exactly like it was 22 years ago. There was very little wind at all. The skies were crystal blue, just like they are today. And it was in the mid-70s, just a gorgeous, gorgeous day. And, you got to think about those people that boarded those planes, those people that went to work at the World Trade Center, at the Pentagon, the people that boarded their flights that for the flight that crashed in Pennsylvania, because they were brave enough to take it over. So chronologically, basically what happened is that at 8:46 a.m., I don't know whether it was American Airlines, it doesn't matter, but it was a passenger plane with hundreds of people on it and 5 terrorists. They took it over, and at 8:46 a.m., they hit the North Tower of the World Trade Center. And that's when I got the call. Let's start something on fire. The pipe I'm smoking here, it really doesn't matter, and what I have in it, that doesn't matter either. So after I get the call from my wife, it was probably 5 minutes to 9 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. I run to the customer lounge. Everybody's glued to the television set. The news is on. They're showing replays because they did have it on video somehow. They're showing replays of the first plane hitting. There's a helicopter that's circling around. There's people that are waving white flags, or whatever to try to get people's attention, you know, from like the 96th or 97th floor. And to really understand the height of that, because that's where the plane hit, it kind of went in it sideways, and I think it hit between the 95th and 97th floor. It went in sideways. These terrorists knew what they were doing. There's smoke billowing out, and there's people that are trying to get help from, you know, above where the plane hit. There was hundreds of people that were killed instantly. And I'm watching this, and it's like time stopped, and I'm actually sitting watching the whole thing, and at 9:03 a.m., another plane going full speed. So we're talking some of these jet airliners, I mean, they're doing 600-700 miles an hour, 500 miles an hour. I used to fly, and the entire dealership and all the customers that were there to get their cars serviced and everything, at 9:03 we watched in dismay as another plane hit the second tower. That was the south tower. And then I knew, you know, I was like, this doesn't happen just twice, okay? I mean, by accident, all right? So basically, like I said, everything stopped. Nobody was going to do any work. We were all glued to the TV set, and the owner of the dealership was very respectful of that, and basically everything just kind of shut down, you know. And then at 9:37, another flight hits the Pentagon. So within, you know, basically an hour and 45 minutes, no, not even that, you know, within 45 minutes, 50 minutes, you know, three planes that were hijacked hit important strategic areas. And so at 9:37, that's what happened. The plane flying full blast crashed right into the Pentagon, killing hundreds and hundreds of people. At 10:03 a.m., Flight 93 crashed in Pennsylvania. And they were low enough where some of them were able to get their cell phones to work, and they were calling relatives, telling them that they loved them. Be right back. I just had to take a moment to myself. The memories of that day are, and being in New York State where I live, are just etched into everything. I remember the way I felt. I remember the weather. I remember everything. So, Flight 93, the one that crashed in Pennsylvania, they somehow had cell phone service. At least one or two of them did. And they called the relatives and to tell them goodbye. And the relatives filled them in on what was going on. And they believe, it's not proven, we don't know, but they think that plane may have been heading towards the White House. And so those brave young men and women decided that they weren't going to go down without a fight. And they believe, because some of them had cell phone service and they just said, I gotta go, I love you, and they didn't hang up. And you can hear them crashing through the door, and they were fighting over the controls that the terrorist had basically killed the pilot and the co-pilot, and so they were not gonna let that target hit anything else. And none of those people knew how to fly, so they figured they would just give up their lives. I'm guessing, I don't know. Because they loved our country and they weren't going to let them, these terrorists, accomplish their mission. And so they crashed in a field in Pennsylvania at 10:03 a.m. There wasn't anything left of that plane. At 9:59 a.m., I remember watching in dismay as the south tower collapsed. It just basically went straight down. So they knew what they were doing, these terrorists, and they had taken flight lessons out of Florida. And then at 10:28 a.m., the North Tower collapses. Prior to that, you had young men and women firefighters that were running in to these buildings, the North and South Towers of the World Trade Center. And right shortly, within a couple months after 9/11, I joined my local fire department to serve my country. I actually called on that day and to see, and at that point in time, I was 36 years old, and I wanted to see if I could join the military. I wanted to serve my country. Didn't even ask my wife, just called right up that day. And I was a year too old. I was 1 year too old. The cutoff was 35. They eventually raised it to 42 to join the military. But I was always like 1 year over every time they tried to do that. So I did my service for a few years in the fire department. And then later on, I did end up joining the New York Guard, which has an age limit of 70. They basically assist the National Guard. I remember how quiet everything was. Now, the car dealership that I worked at is on a very busy 4-lane highway. You didn't see one car. There wasn't one car. Now, we're not too far. I mean, we have Rochester International Airport, which where I was working is only maybe 6 or 7 miles away from Rochester International Airport, which is a big hub, you know. There's a lot of planes taking off in and out of there. In fact, that's where I took some flying lessons. I'll save that for another day. But I remember it was the skies were so blue. And it was so quiet. Not one car going up and down that busy road. And there wasn't a plane in the sky. The sky was so blue. Normally you could see streaks across the sky from, passenger jets and Federal Express and UPS, jets and stuff taking off. You didn't see a thing. There wasn't anything. No cars, no airplanes, nothing. So on that day, we lost 2,753 innocent people. We lost 343 firefighters, New York City firefighters. Now those guys and girls, and having been a firefighter myself, I was volunteer, and they were paid. I know what it's like to run up just 5 floors. Okay, now your average floor in a house is 8 foot high, but when you look at a commercial building, it's the average floor is 12 foot high. So these guys are running up to the 97th floor. Multiply that by 12. That's over 1,000 feet of stairs going up and up, and just your gear alone, your mask, your air tank, your bunkers, your coat, your boots, your gloves. Just that weighs 60 pounds. Okay, so if you're a person that is, let's say, 180 pounds, you're weighing in at 240 pounds fully geared out. That's before you even figure anything like a Halligan bar, which is like a big pry bar, or any other tools you might be carrying. And then they have what's called a hotel pack, which basically is X number of feet of hose, all right, that you can go up. And that I think weighs 50 or 60 pounds. So, some of these guys were running up stairs, flights of stairs, endless flights, endless floors, carrying 100 to 120 pounds of gear, almost double their body weight. And they weren't afraid. They wanted to save people, and they did. Unfortunately, a lot of them were lost. The one tower, the last one to collapse, and I remember this from being in the fire department. They would radio, if we were in a structure fire, let's say a house fire or a commercial building, doesn't matter, it's a structure fire. If they think it's going to collapse, what they do is they'll radio and say, you need to exit now. And then every fire truck that's on scene blows a siren, all right? And that is the cue, hey, things are gone bad, this is a write-off, get out. And those guys didn't hear that. And so when the floors came down, they were killed. There was actually a small space that a few firefighters managed to somehow survive. I mean, these floors basically pancake down, boom, 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 boom. I remember hearing the sound. And somehow, these firefighters, there was a few of them got in the corner, and they were the only survivors that actually survived that attack, that were interior. So you have interior firefighters, which they when everybody else is running out of the building, interior firefighter personnel, they're running into the building. But you see it on the movies and stuff like that, where people are standing up and they're spraying a hose, firefighters. No, you don't do that. You actually go in on your hands and knees, because when you're on your hands and knees, it might be 500 degrees, 300, 400, 500 degrees, depending on how hot the fire is. But if you're a 6 foot tall man and you're standing up, all right, it could be 1,200 degrees, just that short a distance. So you never rush into a fire, standing up. The movies, it's Hollywood for it. So 2,753 people total died. Initially, many died from other effects of being affected by the dust. You had 23 New York Police Department personnel that passed away. perished in that. And he had 37 Port Authority police officers that passed away. The average number of firefighters that die in what's called a line of duty death. A line of duty death is where you're responding to a fire call, and let's say something happens, and we had this in the department that I was in just before I joined. There was a gentleman with his son there was a windstorm and there was a fire call, and he was on his way, and one of the huge oak trees in the village where I was a member, it was a windstorm, and it collapsed and fell on his vehicle, and he was killed, and his son was sitting in the seat next to him, totally unharmed. That's considered a line of duty death. He was responding. So, or you can be, you can be killed in the fire, So the average number of firefighters in the United States that are killed in line of duty deaths are, the average is 55 per year, and that year we lost 343 of them. I remember President Bush at the time vowed that we were gonna hunt down the individuals responsible for orchestrating this. It had been the biggest attack on the United States since December 7th, 1941, when Pearl Harbor, or maybe it was December 7th, 1940, I can't remember. I'd have to Google it. I should know this. But when the Japanese attacked Pearl Harbor in Hawaii, this is the biggest attack on U.S. soil since then. And all those brave men and women, okay, I'm sure a lot of them knew that they were going to die. But they gave up their lives in an attempt to save some people, and they did. So that's my memory of 9/11. Over now.